Okay, hi guys, hello everyone, welcome to LSA's Speedrun Marathon collaboration with Singapore Comic Con. My name is Kuroshi94, and today joining me in this run for co-commentating is Pickard4th.
Hey y'all.
And A_press.
Hello.
Okay, so the game that I will be running was Hollow Knight. It is a Metroidvania game, but I guess Hollow Knight has more or less taken the sort of like a role of like a cultural like behemoth when it comes to Metroidvanias, such that most games that are Metroidvanias nowadays it's basically called a Hollow Knight Light, even though they are not, by the way. But nevertheless, the run that I will be doing today is True Ending on the current patch NMG. So I guess Pickard, you might want to explain why specifically why specifically there are different, I guess, like rule sets for current patch and like I guess NMG in a way.
Yeah, so Hollow Knight is a game that has a lot of glitches, and in older patches there were a lot more glitches. Most people who run the game run on patch 1221, which is the speed patch, and there are a few other smaller glitches that they use. You'll see in the run that Kuroshi will go for a few things called inventory drops, where you open your inventory while you're in the air, which uncaps your fall speed. But on current patch, it's a frame perfect trick, whereas on 1221 you can do it whenever you're in the air.
Yeah.
And there are going to be several things like that. But because of the small differences between the patches, the route is actually going to be very different for current patch True Ending compared to 1221 True Ending. And we'll go into that as we get into the run.
Like some people also like to dub the 1221 patch as cheater patch, but we won't get into the patch differences. So I will start the run. We can start time at about when we start the menu, when we select the menu. Sorry, and we can time. So you guys can start, I guess, by explaining what exactly True Ending is, and I guess like sort of like the development of the route as well then.
We should probably start with a little more generally about Hollow Knight, right? I think we're not going to assume that people are familiar with the game that much.
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Okay, so as Kuroshi said, Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania. So there are a lot of different routes you can take through the game. And there are a lot of differences in how the game turns out depending on what you do. So because we are playing the True Ending speedrun, it implies that there are other endings. And the most basic ending, which happens in the 80% speedrun, requires a lot less of the game for us to go through. So the True Ending speedrun is a lot longer. There are a lot more difficult, challenging sections, platforming sections, and boss fights and such, which you don't have to go through in the 80% speedrun.
Yeah, and again, as we mentioned earlier, we're doing what we call on True Ending on current patch. So, well, current patch like doesn't really necessarily mean the most current patch. It just means any patch 1432 and after. So like specifically the reason why there is like a difference in patches, as I think we've mentioned before, are that there are some differences between the patches to the point where you could even say that they're basically played vastly different. Not so different to the point where it's a completely different game, but it is definitely like it is significant enough to cause some people to complain about certain changes.
We can talk a little bit about that. Kuroshi and I, so all three of us are current patch TE runners. Kuroshi and I both run on the current is current patch 1.5.78, I believe.
Yes,
Kuroshi.
That's correct. Yep.
Whereas A-Press runs on 1.432.
Yes, I've stuck to running on current-ish patch.
And there's one of the inventory drops you can see there.
Yeah, the inventory drop is actually as Pickard mentioned, not really a frame perfect trick, but it's primarily a physics frame perfect trick. So do you guys want to explain what physics frames are on Hollow Knight, I guess?
AP?
Yeah, basically the game, the way it updates graphically is different from how it keeps track of like physics checks. So all graphics frames can go up to like 200, 300 FPS. Physics frames is constant with 50 frames per second. So a lot of times when we're talking about frame perfect tricks, we mean that, like 1 every 50 seconds.
Yep.
Which are pretty tight, but not nearly as bad as it would be if it was a 1 in 200.
Imagine an inventory job at 1 in 200 trick. That is, yeah, definitely not worth to go for. So now we're gonna get to a point where I think some people tend to, like, you know, chide me for not doing.
Oh no. Run's dead.
So what I just did, or I guess not did, was this thing called statue pogo, which is sort of like pogoing. As you can see, like, we can do, like, the Hollow Knight uses these sort of like attacks with the nails, and like there's a lot of like movement based around it. One such movement is pogoing, and there's a trick in that specific room where you pogo on the statue to get onto the platform faster, but unfortunately, due to muscle memory or other things, I don't necessarily do it.
Kuroshi is an incredibly talented runner, and a lot of the times he chooses consistency over going for particularly difficult tricks. Now, because he's such a good runner, a lot of his difficult tricks that he goes for are consistent. But some small things which only save parts of a second here or there, he doesn't go for. And actually, I think I should shout this out right now, in case it hasn't been said yet. But Kuroshi just got world record yesterday in this category, so if you all want to give some congratulations in chat, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
So right now we're just dispatching technically the first boss of the run, False Knight. He's a roughly simple-ish boss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So right away, this is a pretty big difference over what the any percent route does. There's like a dev intended shortcut you can use to skip killing this boss. But since we need a lot of money early on in the route, we decide to kill it, and then we get this geo chest here, which is the game's currency.
We also kill...
In addition...
Oh yeah, sorry, go
ahead.
Yeah.
In addition, later on in the run, we kill what is called a dream boss, which is failed champion, and you have to beat False Knight in order to be able to access that boss fight later, which is a much more difficult version of False Knight. And just for a sense of the size of this game, personally, I am not the greatest video game player. It's taken me a lot of work to get where I am in the speed game, but it took me 4 hours casually to get to False Knight, and right now we're about 4 minutes into the run. So right now you're seeing Kuroshi pick up his first spell. Now this spell is called Vengeful Spirit. You'll hear us calling it Vengeful Spirit, VS, or Fireball interchangeably. For quite some time, it's going to be our main damage output. We have our little sword thing we call the Nail, and it does 5 damage, whereas the VS will do 15 damage until we get a Charm, which is an upgrade to our items, called Shaman Stone, which increases the damage of our spells enormously, and then VS will do 20 damage. So it makes a lot of sense for us to be using our spells for most of our damage instead of our Nail.
Indeed, if you ever find yourself like any difficulty doing a casual playthrough of this run, we'll I guess we'll explain more when we get the charm. You want to explain why we get this charm in particular? Or
well, AP, you were the reason we get this one.
Yeah, so we just picked up a charm called Soul Catcher. The way charms work in this game is they're little equipment items that you can add, and they'll give you some extra effects. So what Soul Catcher does is it makes it so that every hit that you do on an enemy gives you a little bit more soul, which is essentially your mana for this game. You use it to heal or to cast spells. What you might notice is we don't equip the charm right away. Normally you need to sit on a bench and open a menu to put it on. But because we're going to be buying some charms from a shop later on, it actually saves time just to pick up this charm, so that we don't get a little cutscene that interrupts the shopping later on. So we save time just for picking it up, not even equipping it.
Yes, this was done with intensive, research and labbing. Very intensive.
This run has come a long way. I alluded to it earlier, but on the 1221 patch, they end up upgrading the VS spell, which we got earlier as their main damage source. We never upgrade our VS spell, and instead we get a spell called Howling Wraiths, which we then upgrade to a spell called Abyss Shriek. And because of this, the route is exceedingly different. because there are so many fewer runners on current patch than 1.2.2.1, this route for the Abyss Shriek route has been up for a lot of labbing, and recently, say in the last few months, a group of maybe 4 or 5 of us have been doing a ton to change the route quite substantially.
And just to talk on really quick, you might have just seen Kuroshi using a skip here we call a fireball skip. He'll be doing another one in this room. But essentially, we're using the fact that casting the fireball pushes you backwards a little bit. And so we can use that to get up onto a ledge we're not supposed to right away.
Thankfully, there is a backup in that first room, which you use an enemy pogo. The pogo is when we down slash on something and we bounce a little higher. So if you're getting into speedrunning this game and you're trying to do the fireball skips and you're finding it a little too difficult for you, it doesn't look like that hard of a trick, but it's actually rather precise as far as tricks in this game go. You can do the backup, which is much simpler and doesn't lose that much time.
Yeah, and like even the top runners tend to like mess up fireball skips every now and then because, well, you know, it's a game, it happens. It's yeah. It's a very difficult trick, even though people, you know, basically do it like nearly every time. And now, like, we're reaching a point in the run where we sort of deviate from the 1-2-1 route in a way. Do we? I forgot.
Actually, so far we're following the 1-2-2-1 route.
Oh, so they did
now
Moss
it
Knights.
used to be that we did not do these Moss Knights. We instead killed the mini boss, which is in the room above us, like any percent does, which is called Vindfly King, which gives 65 geo.
And
the Moss Knights, however, give about 170 geo. And the 1-2-2-1 has always done the Moss Knights, and recently, as we've come into this new route, which we call Soulcatcher Steady Body, current patch true ending, we've decided to get the Moss Knights as well to make up some extra geo. So this is the first real boss of the game. False Knight for a lot of casual players. Don't give them that much trouble. You die once or twice maybe. Whereas Hornet can really give you issues. As you can see, Kuroshi's making quick work of her. That was actually a really, really nice fight. And you would have seen, maybe, it was really fast, so maybe it missed your attention, but there's a stagger mechanic in Hollow Knight where if you do enough hits quickly enough on a boss, or more hits but slowly on the boss, then the boss will stagger for a little bit of time. And we're going to use that extensively later on a few bosses.
Yeah, the stagger count is a very like I wouldn't say super important, but it's definitely something that what would you call that? Well, it's not exactly unique to Hollow Knight, because the notions of staggers is definitely like a long tradition in Metroidvania, but more or less the idea is that in Hollow Knight, we, especially speedrunning, we have to take note of like the number of hits for like staggers so that we can do optimal damage rotations for well, you know, to move fast and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my movement here isn't as clean as it should be, but you know, we're still getting through fast.
Small things happen. We're definitely going to talk about staggers later. There are 2 bosses, particularly in the mid game. Hornet 2, we actually, spoiler, fight Hornet again. Hornet was the second boss we just fought. And then Lostkin recently has some new strats which really implement use of those staggers.
Yeah, you guys could, I guess you guys can sort of like tell the story of the development of this category, I guess, because we're roughly a empty part of the run right now, I guess.
Yeah, so we're getting up to an NPC shop named Salubra, where we're gonna buy 2 very important charms, which are Steady Body and Shaman Stone. Shaman Stone, we mentioned earlier, increases your spell damage and also increases the size of your spells, which is just super helpful. Steady Body makes it so that whenever you hit enemies with your nail, you don't take any knockback. And that's going to be super important for letting us just stay close to bosses and getting off sort of a stun lock that makes the fight really quickly, in Lostkin specifically.
Oh no, he died.
I swear this joke is a bit overused. It is a certain joke, I think, when it comes to like marathoning for Hollow Knight, at least, that people will exclaim, "Oh no, we died in this specific spot." But the reason why we die is, well, you'll see in a bit.
So in any percent, you also do a version of what's happening now. It's called a shade skip. But in any percent, we have an item which lets us wall jump, which makes the skip pretty much free. Whereas, as you can see, this was rather complicated. We do a damage tank, we do a pogo, we do a parry, we do some fireballs to stall in the air, because that's one of the properties of using a fireball, is that you stop falling. So it's a rather difficult trick, but Kuroshi pulls it off no problem.
Yeah, it took me a while to actually like learn this trick. But it's certainly fun. We call it TE Shade Skip, well, because of the eponymous, well, true ending. And it's like uniqueness in the sense that we do not get Mantis Claw or the wall cling ability beforehand.
So as Apress said earlier, we pick up Soul Catcher in order to not get kicked out of the Salooper shop, which we just bought from, when we buy Steady Body. So Soul Catcher Steady Body True Ending is really about Steady Body as far as the name goes. Shaman Stone is still the most important charm, and Shaman Stone you pick up in almost every Hollow Knight speedrun. Steady Body is exceptionally rare to be picked up, and I think this is probably the only run in the overworld where we use Steady Body.
Yep, there are some runs that take Steady Body. If you do Pantheons are like the sort of like final content in the run. But other than that, there's no other run that I know of, at least, that utilizes Steady Body as much as True Ending current patch. Well, at least this route, at least. The superior route.
So we're picking up an ability here called the Dream Nail. So this is really important for just kind of main story progression. It's gonna let us get 3 NPCs that are called Dreamers that you need to beat the game. But it will also let us go and fight a whole bunch of Dream Warriors around the map. And that's actually the reason why we come and do the Shade Skip without having Claw, is because we want to fight a Dream Warrior on the way there. So we need to make sure we have Dream Nail first.
Frankly, I would rather not fight the Dream Warrior coming up, but it is necessary for the route to go fast. This Dream Warrior coming up is named Elder Who, and it is a hated boss of any True Ending runner, not because of its difficulty, but because there is an incredible amount of RNG where Elder Who can use an attack where you just can't hit him for several seconds.
Indeed,
You'll notice that's a bit of a theme with a lot of the Dream Warriors, is just RNG that is really hard to play around or impossible to play around.
A lot of Hollow Knight players will talk about the fact that Dream Warriors were added for Kickstarter campaign rewards, and were perhaps not the bosses with the most thought thrown into them.
Yeah, they are very much RNG, super. So basically Elder Who is sort of like how I would say it, as like the first RNG check of the run in many ways. In the sense that if you want a good run going, it's like almost like, yeah, I mean not almost necessary, but it's like it'll be like, you know, appreciated if Elder Who is nice. And
if Elder Who's mean, it can kill your run immediately. Now, one thing which you may have noticed is that we have something called a charm notch, which lets us equip charms. You start with 3 charm notches. We just picked up a 4th. And however, when we were sitting outside the Salubra, we put on Steady Body, which is 1 notch, and then we put on Shaman Stone, which is 3 notches, which is more notches than we should be able to have. This is accomplished by overcharming, where you just try and put on a charm, which is more notches than you can put on over and over again, 5 times exactly. And then it lets you put them on, but you take double damage. So that's why that split is a little bit scary. You can see Kuroshi got hit and he lost 2 out of his 5 health. We're never going to have more than 5 health in this run. So things can get a little bit dicey.
But then we picked up another charm notch on the way to this boss here, which gives you a free heal and also makes it so that we stop taking double damage.
And
you can see we're getting this attack, which we call Pancakes. That's the attack which we were talking about hating.
This is
just puts him on screen for a while. Another really important factor or mechanic, I guess, in the game, which we haven't talked about, are getting doubles with the Vengeful Spirit. And AP was talking about this earlier with the fact that Shaman Stone gives you a bigger VS. So if you want to go into that a little bit, AP.
Yeah, so
give me a moment.
you probably saw it a little bit there, but when we hit enemies with the fireball, it pushed them back a bit. And so we can take advantage of that, especially when the enemies are already moving in one direction. To have their hurt box overlap with the fireball multiple times, and it'll keep hitting them for repeated damage. So a big part for that Elder Who fight is figuring out which way he's floating and then shooting a fireball in that same direction, so it kind of goes with his movement and hit multiple times for a lot of damage.
And now you're about to see Kuroshi come up to what is called an explosion pogo. In 1221, the speed patch we were talking about earlier, it's pretty much a free trick because you can pogo explosions in this game, and you just let that sporg explode and you pogo that explosion. Now, on current patch, they patched out pogoing just that specific explosion. You can still pogo other explosions, which goes into a little bit of a theme where we can talk about the fact that Team Cherry, the incredible creators of this game, are not the greatest fans of speedrunners. Just getting the Mantis Claw here. It can be a really scary part of the run. You try and do a pretty hard trick where you have to manipulate the AI of the Mantises in order to skip up here. But it's really easy to mess up, and if you do, you have to get through forests of Mantises. Thankfully, we're through, and we're going to be able to quit out.
It's fine. It might not have been the most optimal movement, but we're alive. We're alive. So what I'm doing now is actually a very important skip. Well, not skip, like a speed tech called mouse quit outs. You guys want to explain what mouse quit outs are?
Yeah, so
I'll explain quickly. Go ahead.
So multiple times throughout the run, we'll purposely quit out and then reload to spawn back in where our last bench was. We've found kind of recently that it's quicker to do that with your mouse than using a keyboard or a controller, and it's not the most popular speed tech in the community, to say the least.
Saves maybe 0.1.
0.5,
now, AP did
actually.
extensive labbing on this fight, so if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so when I kind of came into this category, a lot of people were fighting Zero. This is another fight where we really want to get doubles and maybe even triples with the fireball. It turns out it's a lot quicker if we try and just push Zero into the right side of the arena here. Pushing him to the left, you'll see there's a lot of open space. Zero will kind of just float above where you can hit him easily. So yeah, instead we just try and get to the left side and just keep hitting Zero to the right for the whole fight. And end up taking him down pretty quickly.
On 1221, as you may hear as a theme, this is not such a big deal because 1221's fireball will go further than current patch, so they can pretty easily get triple fireball hits by just letting Zero fly out to that side. However, we've got to adapt, and AP really came up with a very cool strat for that purpose. Now, did we talk about Essence, the reason we are fighting these Dream Warriors?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Okay, so part of the true ending is that we have to get an item called Voidheart. Voidheart will let us fight the final boss of the run, which is the Radiance. Spoilers. In order to get the Voidheart, we need to get another charm called King Soul. Now, King Soul has two halves, and one half is in White Palace, which will come at the end of the run. It's my favorite part of the run. It's about a 4.5, 5-minute platforming challenge, which has some incredible movement. In order to access White Palace, you need to upgrade your Dream Nail to the Awoken Dream Nail. In order to upgrade your Dream Nail, you're going to have to collect Essence. Collecting Essence along the way will have the Seer, who's right here, give us various rewards. One of which is going to be this Awoken Dream Nail when you have 1,600 Essence.
1,800 Essence.
1,800?
Yes, it's 1800.
Yes.
I just followed the route.
As you can see, speedrunners aren't necessarily the most what do you call that? Attentive when it comes to lore and details. All we know is follow route and do run.
Now, one really important piece of lore here is that you save 4 seconds if you do a skip called Revicless, which involves some funky geometry under that waterfall. Kuroshi famously does not go for Revicless because he doesn't care about going fast.
Unfortunately. But yeah, Revicless is actually I won't say it's not super difficult. It is okay, actually it is very difficult, that's why
it's a really difficult trick, and the visuals don't give you any help, so you've really just got to kind of grind it, show hitboxes and figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
As also, I think like we haven't mentioned it before, but like as you can see that the run is primarily done in Mandarin. Surprising, am I right? So as always, for speedrunners, we particularly again don't really care about stuff like lore, you know, what is this lore, like locations, all of it don't matter. All we care about is speed, and Mandarin is significantly faster than English or any other language, to the point where we save nearly upwards of up to like well, in any percent we save like about, I don't know, about say a minute, I think 20 seconds maybe.
On the run, it depends how many NPCs you're talking to and how long-winded those NPCs are, but certainly it adds up quite a bit in this run and any other lengthy run.
Yeah, since like the run RT is about like what, 1 hour,
about an hour 20, depending on your level, obviously. My speedrun is a little bit longer than Kuroshi's.
It's fine.
Oh, what is this? What is this? Same split, and Kuroshi skips another piece of speed tech.
Yeah, I'm like, people tend to do this thing where they.
This is a contentious split, but jokingly. And these are not marathon safe strats. Kuroshi just goes for more consistent strats in the split, which, considering I lose 15 seconds in the split to my best time from missing these skips, probably pays off every once in a while.
Probably, maybe, perhaps. So now we're going into one of the lengthy NPCs that Picardy mentioned earlier, called Lem, where we sell a bunch of relics, as they are called, to Lem. So Geo is actually a very important part of the run, as you can see, as you will see later actually.
Geo is our money, which you can see in the top left corner there.
So yeah, but so right now we want to get enough Geo so we can buy the Lumafly Lantern from a shop back at the beginning of the game, which will let us see in the dark, and importantly grant us access to Crystal Peaks by letting us get through a dark room that has like a toll that we spend money on to get another very important upgrade. So that's what we're up to right now.
And yeah, we're basically approaching the, I would say, one of my favorite parts of the run, Crystal Peak.
Absolutely.
It's very much a pure movement based split, so you will see me try and do certain tricks that, although I don't do like other tricks in like the other splits, this particular split I have practiced somewhat extensively, to the point where I should be able to do certain tricks that I think some members of the community definitely like do not like, and like, you know, put it lightly.
We go the other way on this split. Kuroshi goes for a couple tricks that I don't go for. But actually, so we are speedrunners. We don't actually care about the dark. There are some runs where we go through dark rooms where you can't really see anything that's going on. However, there are two things in the game which do require Lantern. One is that toll, and you don't need the toll to get into Crystal Peak, but the other way to get into Crystal Peak takes us a very long time to get another spell. And the other thing is to fight a boss called No Eyes, who is one of those Dream Warriors, and we're going to end up fighting later.
Good RNG on that. So that trick that I just did was called Pogax. Basically where we pogo on the axe, and hence Pogax. Oh.
That's actually a new setup that Kuroshi just went for. Been found pretty recently, and allegedly it's much more makes the trick much more consistent. On 1221, as the theme continues. That trick is significantly easier. The miner moves more slowly, throws the axe a little more consistently. On current patch, we've had to find ways to deal with getting bad RNG, which comes pretty frequently.
Yeah, so like, I mean, the general rule of thumb is if you're on good pace, that's bad RNG ahead of you.
Nice. And Kuroshi gets both the important inventory drops in the split. Most of the split is climbing. Those two inventory drops are the main places where we're falling. And most inventory drops in the game don't actually save that much time, but those two certainly do.
Indeed. So like, there'll be a recurrent theme of like some of us saying, oh, those inventory drops already save time, stuff like that. And it's not us coping the fact that we don't have inventory drops, but yeah. So I did what we call an underplat. Relatively difficult trick, I would say, I think. But
Underplat is, for a trick that saves as little time as it does, it's really risky. You take 2 damage if you fail it, and you lose the cycle. You could see that Kuroshi took 1 intentional damage tank at the beginning of that cycle, and then just ran through the room. But it throws you off the cycle, you take 2 damage, you go back to the beginning of the room, essentially. Yeah, it can be very problematic. However, unlike skips like Pogax, which save considerably more time and are maybe not... Well, Pogax is probably a little more difficult. But certainly not quite as risky, health-wise. It's essentially a mandatory trick in the community.
So for the entire area, what we did was basically to get the super dash ability of the game called Crystal Dash, and that allows us to basically access certain parts of the game that are otherwise inaccessible / move us faster around the area, like for example there. And now we basically gone through the early game, I would say. And now
so AP, you're our Dream Warrior expert if you want to talk about Gorb a little bit.
Yeah, so here's our next Dream Warrior. This is Gorb. So we'll see again, we're trying to get doubles with our Fireball. The main way to do that with Gorb, I guess there's 2 main ways. The first is again fireballing in the same direction that Gorb is moving, which you saw Kuroshi doing towards the beginning of the fight. The other main way is Gorb kind of teleports, and sometimes you can get double hits there. Saves quite a bit of time when you get him. He did another trick at the end here that saves a little bit of time, where we lure over Avengefly to knock us out of the pickup animation as we collect the essence from Gorb. Let's just quit out just a little bit faster and get onto this next part.
So basically, like I mentioned earlier, we've basically gone past the early game part of the run, and now we're in the what I would consider like the somewhat the hardest part of the run, I guess, the mid game, where a lot of things are very dependent on RNG / fights that are quite difficult for the equipment that we have, really. So
absolutely,
this is basically like a pseudo boss gauntlet. One difficult trick that's about to come up is this one called Forgotten Crossroads Acid Skip, where we again utilize the Crystal Dash in order to skip the acid, whereas like on a casual playthrough you probably require the some people say skill, I'd say a charm called Isma's Tear, which allows us to sort of like swim in the acid where we otherwise are unable to.
And you'll see some other more difficult acid skips later, but good job to Kuroshi for getting that one first try. So a lot of this run is considered a little bit of a meme in the community, because even though we're pretty sure it's as optimal as we know so far, it is a very difficult run compared to the other True Ending run, just to get through the run. Obviously, optimally, every run is going to be difficult, but we fight a lot of hard bosses with considerably less equipment than other runs will, and particularly in this mid-game, which Kuroshi was talking about.
So now we're on our way to grab what is essentially a super important skill called Howling Raves, and it will be our sort of main damage source for basically the entirety of the mid game.
and this spell is part of the reason why this route is much more effective on current patch than on 1.2.2.1. On current patch, when you have Shaman Stone equipped, Howling Wraiths does 3 ticks of damage, and each tick does 20 damage. So each tick does as much damage as one of our VSs. So 60 total, whereas on 1.2.2.1, I believe it does 39 damage total with VS equipped. So it's much less effective in this mid-game. And then the Shriek ability, which we get later, which is a much stronger version of Howling Wraiths, will do more damage as well.
Yeah, the Howling Reefs arena is a bit of an annoying arena. Like one wrong mistake and you're gonna lose time essentially.
It's another section of the run where we do the arena with less equipment than most people usually do. In the All Skills run, they also do the arena, but they have Shade Soul, which is the upgraded Vengeful Spirit. They have Wings, which is our double jump, and they have Dive, which is an ability which gives you some iframes.
So right now we're going on to what some might consider very, well, how would you describe this next upcoming fight, guys?
Extremely frustrating to say the least.
Well,
This is my least favorite fight in the run. It kills so many of my runs. There's incredible RNG, and it's really easy to die.
really easy would probably be an understatement, really.
Really
This
quick,
was-
Kuroshi, just to remind you, you're 8 geo short of what you want for Basin. Not sure if you were keeping track of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, mid-game Geo is really tight and really important, whereas late-game Geo, we don't really have to worry about. At least on 1.5. 1.4 has to worry a little bit more, but not really that much more. Oh, and Kuroshi pulling off an excellent Dreamnail drop. So you could see earlier we're doing the inventory drops, which are those physics frame perfect drops there. Now, you can do the same thing with your Dreamnail. It also uncapture fall speed, though only for the length of the Dreamnail. But in this fight, it's faster for us because we get to do the whole Dreamnail animation while we're falling.
not bad
What a
fight.
fight!
Right, nice fight. So maybe to touch a little bit on what makes Noise such a challenging boss here. Every time that you hit Noise with any kind of damage, I believe there's a 35% chance that Noise will teleport away to a different location in the arena. And when we're trying to hit with Howling Wraith, which does three separate ticks of damage, it's pretty likely that Noise is going to teleport away before we hit with the full damage. Which makes the fight drag on a lot longer. As the fight goes on, Noise shoots more projectiles, and overall the fight can really just spiral into losing a lot of time or death.
Basically, as like the community likes to comment on the Noise fight, it is very fun and very fair. Very fun and
Nice
very
inventory
fair.
drop.
That one saves like about what 0.5 seconds, I would say.
It's one of the more important ones in this run, yeah. And now we're actually getting onto the split where we discovered, or we considered for the first time using Steady Body. Now, I was the one who brought it up. We were doing about 3 hours of labbing in my stream for this split. A-Press and I and a couple other of the current patch TE crew.
Shout out to SCSP CPT crew.
And I made a joke that Steady Body would make the upcoming fight in this split easier. And it does make it easier, but it doesn't actually make it faster. However, in the fight in the next split, because of some strats that A-Press and another runner, Vexance, labbed extensively, it makes that fight substantially faster.
It basically saves all the time that we lose getting the Steady Body and more. So like originally the fight was about, I would say, about 2 minutes and just above
The
slightly.
Comstock was 2 minutes and 12 seconds for a long time. So that's the community some of the best for those who are not speedrunners necessarily. And now it's 146, I think.
145.
So, what is it?
It's about 145.
Okay, so it saves close to 30 seconds. These new strategies.
And it could save even more as well.
Yeah, we've still, so the strategies we use are Wraith strats now. We used to just use VS because using Wraiths on Lostkin is very difficult. Nice skip, by the way. That's a skip similar to the Revicless skip we were talking about earlier.
But
where we
just
use
slightly easier.
Yeah, it's definitely easier. You can see better. The setup's a little easier, and it lets us use a dash into a jump to sort of change the geometry of our wall jump. Now this fight is Broken Vessel. For those of you who have played the game, Broken Vessel has a Dream Boss equivalent that we're about to see, who is Lostkin, and that's the fight I was talking about where Wraiths and Steady Body come in very useful. In the speedrunning community, we tend to call Broken Vessel harder Lostkin, because we all practice Broken Vessel or Lostkin a lot, and Broken Vessel is significantly slower. So oftentimes we run into troubles because of that.
Yeah, and now we're about to enter I would say my most favorite fight of the run. It is very difficult, so and you'll probably
I can start explaining, I guess, a little bit what's going on in this fight.
Absolutely.
Essentially, what we're going to be trying to do is get sort of a stun lock on Lostkin. We talked earlier about bosses requiring a certain number of hits to stagger. With Lostkin, that number is 7. You need 7 hits close together will give us a stagger. And what we're trying to do is stagger Lostkin in one of the 2 corners, so we can then stand up right next to him and hit it with all 3 hits of Wraiths while we're standing on the floor. Which requires really tight spacing when there's a lot going on in the fight. So it's difficult, but saves a lot of time.
Absolutely. And this is why Steady Body matters so much, because you have to stand close enough that you can use your nail to wake Lostkin out of the stagger and then use your Wraiths. Normally we have nail knockback, which means that we're too far away to use Wraiths right away after our nail hit. So there's still a lot more labbing going on. Kuroshi alluded to the fact that that was an incredible fight. That was amazing. God, that was so clean, Kuroshi.
That was really clean. That's Comsop, I think.
Is that a gold? That's Comsop? That doesn't surprise me.
If I had lower level, lower health, that would have been a sub. That would have been a 130 fight. That is.
Oh my god.
Comsop.
Maybe you want to talk about the death ward?
Yeah. So at the end of that fight, just as soon as Lostkin is dead, we're able to leave and still get the essence. So we kind of purposely want to take some damage so that we can die to one of the extras that spawn during the fight, because it skips kind of the dying animation. And if you get it right away, you can save, I think it's around 4 seconds.
5 seconds probably, if you get it perfectly. Okay. Of course.
And as a side note, we also... Go ahead.
Yeah, on 1-2-1, the death warp is actually way slower. So that's one thing that we have over that patch.
True.
We have to take our victory somewhere.
So you just saw Kuroshi use the Wings ability, which is our double jump. That is our prize for beating Broken Vessel. Our prize for beating Lostkin was 400 out of that 1800 essence that we need.
Insane. Right? The fact that they give that much essence is actually insane.
So with more equipment, Lostkin is as easy as Kuroshi just made it look. But usually that fight is incredibly difficult with this loadout. And as is one of the most iconic, in my mind, sections of the current patch True Ending run, we go straight from the incredibly hard fight of Lostkin using Steady Body, and then we take off Steady Body, which actually makes it so that this run has a weird skill ceiling, because you have to get used to having no nail knockback and then having nail knockback. And we put on Dream Wither, which lets us use our Dream Nail faster, and it gives us twice as much soul. So usually we get 3 out of 9 soul hits from a Dream Nail. Now we get 6. And we're going to use that to try and get a stagger lock on Hornet, similar to the one with Lostkin, but we're going to do it in quite a different way.
Batman.
Yeah, and the other reason we come back here is we get an ability called Dream Gate, which you'll see Kuroshi will be setting it up right away. We essentially choose a spot that we can warp back to later on. It costs us 1 essence to use that, which ends up being a pretty negligible cost later on. There's some easy ways to pick up like a spare 10 to 12 essence to make that up. But yeah, it's a really important part to the routing for the rest of this run. We'll be kind of getting to a crossroad, putting down the Dream Gate, going one way, and then coming back to do the other half.
Oh.
This is a somewhat difficult skip, I would say, but yeah.
Okay, so there is a skip which you would usually do here, where you use wings and you dash under the little overhang and use your wings to hit the damage, hit the acid and do a damage warp, where you get your respawn point in such a spot where you can get to the other side. Now, Kuroshi does the harder and slightly faster trick, which does not involve a damage warp and is an incredibly precise acid skip.
The community has dubbed it ACN skip after the run that utilizes it the most and basically discovered that skip, I would say. Did it? I'm not really familiar.
I think so.
ACN skip or Ultra Notcha skip, which is an absolutely wonderful run that you all should go check out. If you guys ever have the chance. And this is the Hornet 2 fight.
This is one of my favorite fights. We start off with a Dream Nail to get a bunch of soul. Like Lostkin, Hornet 2 has a 7-hit stagger counter. When Hornet throws her nail, like she's doing right now, she resets her stagger count. And in order to get the stagger here, we're going to hit her. And whenever we hit her, she jumps out of the stagger. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump up and use our Wraiths. Now, in this fight, there's a very important quality of Wraiths, which is exploited by us. And that's the fact that Team Cherry decided for some reason that when you're facing left, Wraiths will push away enemies, and when you're facing right, Wraiths will pull them in. So you'll see that Kuroshi jumps up and faces left in order to try and keep Hornet in the corner, in order to keep that stagger going. Nice fight.
Nice fight.
Good fight. Lost some time
with
the death, but it's fine.
The facing left and facing right part of Wraiths is also important in the Lostkin fight, which makes it pretty easy, or I guess a lot easier to do it on the left side of the arena. On the right side, you need to be pretty quick to turn back to facing left before casting Wraiths. And it'll be important for some more bosses.
Absolutely. And other parts of the run, there are a few smaller enemies where it's important for us to be facing the correct direction.
Indeed, like, why does it do that? I have no idea why, but it does, and we make do with what we can, really, because that's I think a motto that current patch basically has. We make do with what we have.
I really like it because it makes a lot of strats possible. It certainly makes things more difficult, but it creates a really cool skill element to using the spell. Now you may ask yourself, why didn't they just quit out? There was a bench right there by the Dream Gate. We've used this before. What are we doing now? Are Dream Gates faster? And the answer is no. Dream Gates are not usually faster. However, there are hard saves in Hollow Knight, and one of them is after picking up the item we get from beating Hornet, which is King's Brand. So we need to use the Dream Gate, otherwise we have to walk back. Now, King's Brand gives us the ability to access the Abyss. The Abyss is important for 3 key reasons, 2 of which are coming up right now. The first is that we're going to get our Abyss Shriek ability. This is the strongest spell in the game. It can be hard to use because it only affects directly above you. But it is going to do incredible damage. It's what I said earlier, it does 120 damage. Our nail does 5. Therefore, it is going to be our main damage source for quite some time.
So if Chad's wondering, Shriek does do the whole push and pull thing, so it becomes important later on in one specific boss, but otherwise Shriek is the hitbox for Abyss Shriek, or this spell that we just got, is actually so huge, so it necessarily doesn't really matter that much, except in like this one specific boss. This very I think the community is, well, love is probably a very strong word to say for that specific boss, but you'll see when we get there.
If I'm thinking of the same boss, which I probably am, actually I'm probably not. You're probably thinking of a different one. But sort of the late game, in my mind, this is sort of the mid-late game. And when we start to get to the late game is when a lot of things where that matters come up. So Kuroshi's
now
very.
that we have Abyss Shriek, you're gonna see a lot of the bosses just kind of melt when we use it on them. A lot of bosses will be, we come in with full soul, we cast our 3 Abyss Shrieks, and the fight's over. Which is pretty satisfying.
So you'll notice Kuroshi walking in, hitting the soul jar, walking out, and then walking back in to hit the lever. That's an RNG minute.
Nah, that's messed up. That tends to happen sometimes.
There's a very famous incident where a very top level runner, Axe2U, did the same thing. Now Kuroshi is very skilled at that abyss climb. It's really difficult. The little ghosts flying around are called siblings, and they do double damage. You gotta pogo them to go all the way up. But Kuroshi is also world record holder in current patch all skills, which also does the climb.
Yeah, if you guys want to check that out, it's also a fun run. By the way, check it out at speedrun.com/HollowKnight.
Yeah, and we can talk right now. Hollow Knight has a lot of great resources, and we've got a great community. People love helping people out. I can tell you personally, if you want to learn this specific speed run, I'll help you out. Message me on Discord, whatever. I'll teach you the run. So it's a hard game, but it's easy to get started because the community is very welcoming. We're really willing to put in the work to help new runners.
We're always welcoming. The more the merrier, as they'd say. So now we're going up to what some might consider a very annoying boss, especially if you've actually played the game. You would think this boss is very annoying. Instead, with
hard boss.
with Shriek, basically most boss fights become more along the lines of positioning wise, rather than a specific like damage rotations. So like as long as you are like aware of certain positions and stuff like that, that's what happened. Like, you know, the boss will basically melt.
You'll notice again that Kuroshi was facing to the right there to make sure that Markoth would stay in. But it's important to point out that while Shriek does so much damage, and we said that our nail only does 5 damage, you can upgrade your nail to do more damage in this game. We don't do that for 2 reasons. One, it's slow. But 2, when you upgrade your nail, these dream bosses get extra health. So if casually you used 3 Shrieks on Markoth, and it didn't come close to killing, and you're saying, well, hang on, I feel ripped off, that's because it had more health, probably, because you had those nail upgrades. AP, do you want to talk about the Great Husk Sentry? And AP has run a lot of any percent current patch, which, so is Kuroshi, which has to do a kill of a Great Husk Sentry in a very difficult way.
Yeah, and the Great Husk Sentry is one that you have to fight on current patch, any percent, and all skills, but older patches of the game are able to hit a lever through the wall to completely skip that. The Great Husk Sentry has a lot of health for the equipment you have, and deals double damage with every hit. The hitboxes are all huge and hit like in front and behind the enemy. So in True Ending, instead we come in with a Shriek and we just kill it through the floor. And it's very satisfying to anyone who has run any percent and struggled with that fight.
And another very satisfying part for any percent runners are now Watcher Knights. Watcher Knights are one of the hardest fights in any percent. You don't have that much damage, it takes you a very long time, but we have Shriek. It's still a very RNG dependent fight, which can make it very frustrating as TE runners. However, it is certainly significantly easier and can go much faster. The rolls are really bad luck in True Ending. As you can see, we want them to stand perfectly still and just take the Shriek.
A bit of a, well, difficult fight, but yeah.
Not worried for a second.
Not even close, chat. Not even close.
Now this is actually... Go ahead.
I was gonna say, here we'll be picking up a Geo Chest, and this gives us the rest of the money for the run, pretty much. I think Pick was about to say this is one of the big differences between 1.4 and 1.5, which are both considered current patches for this category, which is that 1.5 needs to get about 100 less geo from that chest, because there's some enemies later on in an arena that just don't drop money on 1.4. But do on the more recent patch.
Yeah, they became stingy, but then I guess they got like somewhat generous as the chip patch changed. But you know, it is what it is. Maybe they deserve it. Yeah, we probably need to give some money to the poor knight.
So if you remember, the very first boss of the run, the False Knight, seemed like a little bit of a pushover. We just kind of hit him a few times. We did some damage tanks in order to get some cycles through. Just ran through him. Now we're going to see the Failed Champion, which we spoke about. Failed Champion, we're also going to do some damage tanks just to push through that fight. However, you're going to see that Failed Champion is a little more difficult for quite a few reasons.
A number of reasons, a myriad of different reasons. The Failed Champion fight I think is actually quite fun, but it is very difficult even with Shriek. Like so there's a difference again, as we mentioned. For 1-20 we have Shade Soul, whereas for like this current patch we use Shriek. So for Shriek fights there's a very specific damage rotation that requires us to tank damage, but you'll see when we get there.
Not only does it require us to take damage, but Failed Champion is one of the few bosses in the game which does double damage. Therefore we can only take 3 hits in the fight. And not only does Failed Champion do double damage, but throughout the fight there will be rocks which fall. You saw these also in the False Knight fight, but there weren't as many. These rocks will only do 1 damage, but they're very RNG, and there's very little you can do about them. Because we're required to do 2 damage tanks in the fight, we end the fight with 1 health. The rocks make that a little bit scary. Very nice. There's the first damage tank. You can see that that rock almost hit Kuroshi, but he got there, got out of the way just in time. Now the second damage tank, putting us on 1 health.
Oh, that rock.
Oh.
Yeah, as you can see, rocks are the real final boss in this game. So,
Seriously. Well done, well done. Fast fight, we got through. That heal is in case a rock can hit you at the end there. It's some scary stuff. We have enough soul to shoot 2 fireballs, just enough to kill Failed Champ. And we don't do a death warp necessarily, but we fall out of the dream, which, just like doing the death warp in Lost Kin, lets us get out early.
So now we're going to, I think one of the community's, well, I would say favorite boss, but definitely a very iconic boss in many different categories, really. Do you guys want to talk about this specific boss that's coming up?
AP, you came up with some good strats for the boss.
Sure. So we're coming up to Umu, which very much an inspired by Metroid looking boss fight. The way this fight works is basically Umu will do some attacks, you dodge, and then Umu will become vulnerable for a little while. You'll try and get your damage off, and then it'll just kind of repeat. So ideally, in a category like any percent, where you have less equipment, you're able to do it in 2 cycles, but it's very difficult. Because the Bitstreak does so much damage, we're able to beat Umu in just 1 damage cycle, which you're going to see Kuroshi go for here. The idea is we're going to be trying to lure Umu just to kind of stay around the top center of the arena to make it just nice and easy to get those shrieks off.
And Umu
This is a good attack.
Umu is also known for being extremely RNG dependent, so yeah. But this seems good. Doesn't seem like so. Umu has a chance of doing either 3 or 4 attacks, and that is very dependent on like different reasons. But we'll see.
And each attack is either a fast attack or a slow attack. The ones where the attack follows you are the slow attacks. The other ones are the fast attacks. Kuroshi got the best RNG. 2 fast attacks and a slow attack. And the one
no extra.
Yep. I've never seen someone go for that inventory drop.
It's slightly faster. Oh,
Is it?
yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it looks cool, so
It does look cool.
it's as some
And
people
swag
call
is the
it,
most important.
gamer drop right there.
Great, so this will be our second dreamer of the run now. We'll need one more, and then still need to go back and get... Pick mentioned earlier we need the King Soul, so we'll need to go and collect 2 pieces of a white fragment to do that. We'll be coming up to the area called Queen's Gardens next to get one of them.
Queen's Garden, my beloved.
So Queen's Gardens, late game is my favorite part of the run. I've done a lot of work personally on labbing in Queen's Gardens, and we got a lot of cool stuff going on. You can get into Queen's Gardens through a Shade Gate, which is a gate which you can only get through with the Shade Cloak ability we talked about earlier. But you can also get through with a very difficult and iconic acid skip called QGA, Queen's Gardens Acid Skip, used in 80%. And that's faster, so that's what we're going to do.
Oh, at least attempt. It's a very difficult skip, though.
You can see the other acid skips, we had a little bit more room. We're not working with very much here.
Yeah, they give me more marathon nerves. Marathon.
It's like we were talking about earlier. Did we talk about this? Hollow Knight has some very strange buffering. In that most of the time you can't buffer anything. So what this means is that we're dashing into the wall and then we're waiting until exactly when our dash ends to press our C dash. Now, given that we can't fall down the wall or we fall in acid, this makes the timing very, very tight, which is why acid skips are so hard.
Very difficult. I am failing this more than I should be, but yeah, there we go.
Oh,
there we go.
very smooth. All right, that's a picture perfect version.
First try. First try.
First try.
And
Cool.
now we have soul as well, so
Plenty of soul. I was thinking the same thing.
optimal.
So-
Optimal.
Queen's Gardens is considered one of the hardest arenas in the game, or areas of the game. It's very much a late game area. And you've got some difficult enemies to deal with. One are these Mantis Traitors, which are considerably different on 1221 and current patch, because on 1221 they have 40 health and on current patch they have 45. Thankfully, we do 120 damage, unlike in any percent where you do 20 damage, which makes that difference rather negligible.
So, yeah, like why they added 5 extra health? Don't ask me why. Team
Because
Cherry
they hate
things.
speedrunners. Cool, so now we're getting into this long room here, which has a lot of Mantis Traitors, which are what they're called if I didn't say it before. And then we're going to head into a pretty iconic arena, which is called the second Queen's Gardens arena. We already went through the first one, which was pretty negligible with Shriek. This second one is quite difficult, particularly with Shriek, because we're going to see another kind of Mantis, and these are the Mantis Traitors. Mantis Traitors are ground mantises, and they have a very scary attack where they walk into you.
This the most dangerous attack in the entire game, by the way. Okay, he didn't do it.
So here's another area where we want to face right in order for our Shrieks to keep the Mantis Traitors inside. Kuroshi goes for unconventional strats in this arena. They're very difficult. But you could actually see a very interesting quality of the Mantis Traitors there. We can kill them before they appear. However, there is a period of time after they become vulnerable, before they appear, where they become invulnerable again. Which makes that pretty tight, because you have to know when you can do the Shriek before you see them.
Why does that? Why they do that? Well, you know, just Team Cherry things as well.
Now, this split is notoriously difficult and notoriously RNG heavy, because you have the Queen's Garden Arena, and then we go through the Loodles, which we call frogs in the speedrunning community. Their movement is entirely RNG. And you're going through a very narrow corridor and trying not to take any damage. However, Kuroshi gets through the first room ridiculously cleanly.
And then, of course, the second room just ruins everything, as always.
Oh, still, 2 hits in the second room is not terrible. It's very easy to lose 4 health or die in those rooms. But thankfully, we have full soul and full health going into, and 4 health going into the boss that I was talking about. I think Kuroshi earlier was talking about Umu with the annoying boss. This is Marmu. Marmu is another one of the Dream Warriors who can be incredibly annoying if things don't go your way. Thankfully, things went all right.
Also, shout out, she's round.
Yes, as you could see, that is a very, very round boss.
Very circular, even, you would say.
Yeah.
Extremely circular.
If I were to make a list of round bosses, Marmu would be way, way high on that list of round bosses.
Indeed.
For sure. Seriously, even though Kuroshi has a Dream Gate set up, he went ahead and quit out of the game. The reason why he did that is just to refresh his health, because we're coming up to another very punishing boss fight in just a second here, which is going to be the Traitor Lord, which is another one that deals double damage, and has the very fun attack of being able to just walk into you, just like the Mantis Traitors do. It's essentially just a big version of one of those.
Now, on 1221, Traitor Lord really is just a big version of these mantises. However, on current patch, Traitor Lord got a large buff. So now he deals double damage. On 1221, he did not. He has a couple more attacks, one of which we will probably see, one of which we won't see, because the 4th attack, Traitor Lord only does when you're far away, and we're not going to be far away. Traitor Lord can only do 2 dashes in a row most of the time. I've had 2 runs die because he did 3 dashes in a row. But that lets us have a guess of what attack is coming next and to be able to get a shriek off. Very clean fight. Very clean fight. As you can see, Shriek really does shred through bosses when you can get the attacks off, but it also freezes you in place for quite some time, which is one of the reasons why it can be so risky.
But now we'll be picking up our first white fragment here as our reward. So this is one of the very important things for getting the true ending.
This is our mom, lore-wise.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
But yeah, so we get the first half of, like, as AP mentioned, the white fragment. And that basically sets like sets up the basically the final part of this run, which is, I think, for a lot of people very fun. But
yeah,
now we're
everywhere from Queen's Gardens to the end is my favorite part of the run. What were you gonna say? You were saying where we're going, Kuroshi?
Now we're going to what I think some people might consider a very scary part of, like, any any specific speedrun, I think, but not for this one. But like for casually speaking, this area is I think considered by many to be quite creepy, to say the least. Deepness.
I hated this area casually. I've gained a lot of respect because of how large and how rich it is as an area. Now that I play the game a little more intensely. Now, you may notice that there's a lot going on. There are a lot of spiders. As a quick note, this is a Whispering Root, which gives us some essence, but as you can see, it is very slow to collect the essence, but we use it to catch up on that Dream Gate essence that we've used to use that Dream Gate. But Kuroshi, as I said earlier, is the All Skills record holder, and in All Skills, they do this in the dark. They don't go through quite all of this because they don't have to get this next Dream Boss, Dream Warrior that we're going to get, Galleon, but the rest is done totally in the dark.
Now Galleon is my most hated boss for certain reasons, but but in this specific category, he is he's a very nice guy, I guess.
We tend to get along with him.
Look at that. We got to see him for a whole 4 seconds. He's so kind not to overstay his welcome.
Exactly. Oh, gold. That was a pretty smooth fight. Smooth fight as well.
Smooth split.
This is really one.
Yeah, so we are heading in now to get our last streamer. If you watch the 80% speedrun, you know that we're going to Beast In, which is a really difficult part of the run. You got to fight all these devouts, which do a ton of damage to you, and you cannot skip them generally, with small exceptions. You got to fight them. There are really tight areas. You have to weave your way around some weavers, which are the spiders. In this run, we have wings, so we skip it all. There's a dev-intended shortcut in the ceiling. If casually you didn't know about this and now you're mad, sorry. But we skip pretty much everything, and then with Shade Cloak, we're going to skip the only devout, which is in our way, after dreamnailing it to get some soul, which we're going to keep for the beginning of what I called my favorite part of the run earlier, White Palace.
Movement's a bit sus to say the least, but it's fine.
Very difficult part of the run, as you can see.
We make one mistake and it's, yeah, sad.
But it's very nice to have a little bit of a breather there with the Galleon. It is important movement in Deep Nest, but you're not that worried about dying, because we're coming up on one of the most challenging parts of Hollow Knight, a really, really difficult platforming challenge. Casually, it takes people hours and hours to get through, and you can very easily die. It's going to look very small when Kuroshi does it. It's going to go really fast.
Hopefully it looks very small.
But
a small caveat.
There are a few areas where it can go south really quickly.
Yeah. So White Palace is, I think, for a lot of, like, I guess, speedrunners who like platforming, one of the best areas. And one of my favorite areas as well, if not for the fact that I have to speedrun this category and like all my runs have to basically depend on this extremely difficult. It is very difficult, and it is a very fun part of the run. Definitely one of my favorites outside of like the Lost Skin fight.
Yeah, but before we see White Palace, we're making our last little trip to the Seer, and we're going to be getting our Awoken Dream Nail, which we need to enter White Palace.
As well as a few other items that she feels the need to give us that we do not care about at all.
Yeah, because speedrunners, we're not really a very appreciative bunch now, are we? Sad.
Now, the reason we collected the soul from the Devout before coming here is because at the beginning of White Palace, there are two enemies called Kingsmold. Kingsmolds do double damage, have 170 health, and are, in general, very, very scary. So we want to have the soul so that we can dispatch the first one really quickly.
Dun, 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 Ganavamuna. Some Seer sounds for you, man. Yeah, the community likes Seer sounds. They're pretty cute.
It wouldn't be a Kuroshi run without some Seer sounds.
Now we're, as mentioned, White Palace. Like, there's a bunch of jokes lore-wise as to why people think White Palace is the way it is. Why does the Pale King have like a bunch of saws, stuff like that. But it's all for fun and games. We're here to speed. We're here for speed.
So here's the first Kingsmold right outside the entrance to White Palace. The reason Kuroshi delayed that last shriek was because that weapon that was thrown can come back and hit you after the Kingsmold dies. It goes right through where the Kingsmold was.
Very good game design.
That's a really precise C-dash, so well done getting it quickly. Oh? Let's go. Let's go. So, on current patch, usually we don't do this because we have Shriek, so we can take out the second Kingsmold quickly. But this is called Kingsmold skip. As it turns out, clouds are spikes in a lot of the game.
Actually, for current patch, it's this specific room only. Like, the other rooms don't allow you to pogo the spikes. Like, why Team Cherry did spikes?
In White Palace.
Yeah, in White Palace.
There are pogoable spikes in Godhome. Pogoable clouds, that is.
But yeah, specifically, you can only do that in that specific room, but...
So we've seen beautiful White Palace so far. It's a really pretty place. And now we see the saws.
Why they have saws, we'll never know, but it is.
So this room is not the most challenging room in the run. However, the next room is, in my opinion, the hardest room in White Palace. I call it hard room when I'm sad because my run dies to it. I call it cool room when I'm trying to convince people to do the run, because the optimal strats done correctly are very, very cool, but they're very hard and they're very precise. As you can see, Kuroshi pulls off the first bit excellently, and unfortunately falls down, but actually pulls off most of the room really, really well. That is so much harder than it looks like. This C-dash is also quite precise.
Barely saves time
So
to get
all in
first
all,
try as well.
yeah, I don't go for it, and I'm comfortable. Not that it's very.
Another one of those dream nail drops there.
Yeah, that dream nail drop is faster than the inventory drop because it gets us just as far as we need to and lets us pogo in
The
time.
lever, yep. Now we're going to the right atrium. Slightly easier than the left atrium, but still just as difficult, I would say. Like the whole of White Palace is quite difficult.
Yeah, the right atrium here is certainly simpler in a speedrun context because we know the cycles. However, there is one quite precise skip on a saw blade coming up where we fit right between the saw blade and the wall. So hopefully we get that because it's really, really easy to miss it. And obviously no problem for Kuroshi.
Yeah, it was slightly easier, so you don't necessarily need the dash, but it is slightly easier to do it with the dash.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I mean, I'll be my number one critic if I have to.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't see it. But if you end up touching the saw blades or any of the spikes, the game treats them as a hazard. It will actually like respawn you in an earlier part of the room. So not only are you taking damage, but it also loses quite a bit of time as you have to repeat sections.
And often it throws you off the cycle. As you can see, this is a very cycle-based area of the game. Very clean making it past that saw in time. That's right.
Could be taking advantage of a shortcut here in the wall to skip some areas.
That's my first mistake in this one.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, that specific area is a bit hard. Now we're coming up to a room. I think the community has dubbed the SWPIR for a specific runner's incident, to say the least.
There are a lot of incidents which have taken place in White Palace because it is such a hard area of the game, and because obviously any runner who's trying to get a good time in a category with White Palace is going to be trying to go really quickly and doing this hard movement in a very tight manner. Personally, my favorite clip is of a runner, Valley, who is on 1 health in the hard room that I was talking about earlier, and proclaims to chat that don't worry, he's going to go for some extremely safe strats and immediately faceplants into a saw.
Oh, 440. That's not bad.
440? Very nice. Is that a goal?
Nice.
Yeah, it's a goal. Why couldn't I have gone this
Nice,
in my
nice. Yeah, right?
That is what it is. My White Palace is a very specifically, like, you know, very difficult area, I guess. And now we're like entering what is basically the final part of the run, and we're gonna be doing, you know, it all builds up to this in many ways.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
White Palace just... No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're gonna get we got the King Soul, the second half of the King Soul that we mentioned earlier. From we got one from Mom, then we got one from Dad, because the Pale King is apparently the Knight's dad. And yeah. So now we got both like, I guess, halves of the King Soul, and now we're heading on to Void Heart, where we basically like spill some soy sauce or something on the King Soul and make it cool or something like that.
This is a really cool dream game. It's just a safety strat in case you happen to die, which is really easy because we are again overcharmed and there are siblings here. That means they do 4 damage. We can only take 2 hits. And if we get hit by a sibling into the spikes, we die immediately.
And that has happened.
But it's
to
really
me
fun because you put it and it hovers in the air.
And that has happened to me on pace before. Let me tell you, that is extremely annoying, for lack of a better phrase.
There you go. We made our way down. Sorry, you go ahead, Pick.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's well known by all Hollow Knight runners that platforming the gaps become much tighter when you're on pace.
So true.
The siblings get in the worst spots.
Now we're at a birthplace.
Yeah, we made our way down into the abyss. Now it's time to make our way back up. This is the abyss climb, and it's kind of like reliving the knight's memories. And another very technical movement section. You'll see Kuroshi's going for a lot of these spike pogos here to help
nice
climb faster, but very easy to mess up.
There is an easier and slightly slower path to go up the left side, but Kuroshi, like we said, is an all-skills runner, and in all skills, going for that triple spike is practically mandatory at a high level now. Very hard trick, you gotta use some strange angles, but he makes it work no problem. And this is the home stretch. We have all 3 Dreamers, which are required to get into the final boss, who is the Hollow Knight. We are not the Hollow Knight. And then we have the Void Heart, which is going to let us access the Radiance Dream after we fight the Hollow Knight.
And yeah, so let us all, hopefully we get good RNG, because unlike 1221, this fight is actually very difficult on current patch. Extremely difficult, actually, if I want to say so much.
Oh, the Hollow Knight fight. I thought you were talking about Radiance.
No,
1221, the Radiance fight is... There are a couple parts of the Shade Soul route which are harder on 1221 than the Shriek route, and Radiance is definitely one of them. Radiance is, however, still no pushover in this route. I lost my run yesterday on PvPs to Radiance.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, another boss that'll be doing double damage.
Just something.
We got Superman Knight, Rocket Knight, whatever you want to call it.
And yeah, because again, Team Cherry Spaghetti Code, you can do like stuff like that.
There are a lot of ways. There's another very popular one. You can get what's called a nail art, which lets you do cool abilities with your nail. One of them is called Cyclone Slash, where you spin around. And if you use that while you're going over the cutscene trigger, you get Helicopter Knight, where you're just kind of spinning around.
Now we met our mom and our dad, now we're meeting our bro. So it's like one big family drama, basically. That's Hollow Knight.
Right, it's another one of our siblings. Hornet is also one of our half-siblings, and hopefully we'll end up seeing her in the middle of this fight. Who knows, she might help us out. Hollow Knight's music is so good. I mean, we've been talking about how Team Cherry hates speedrunners and how there are so many various handling issues with buffers and this sort of thing. But especially casually, this game is incredible. The atmosphere is amazing. There is so much content. Oh, let's go!
Why did I get this? Why did I get this?
What? Okay, so there are a lot of scream skips in this fight that you could possibly get. One of them is really common for people to go for. That one that Kuroshi got is really tight timing. And he gets the next one, which gives him full soul. That fight was ridiculously fast. Oh look, it is Hornet. And we're going into the dream of the Hollow.
That fight was just 1 second
that
off
was
of
insane.
gold.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, 1 second off of gold.
I'm surprised at that. I want to see your gold fight. Jeez.
The gold fight doesn't have Rocket Knight, that's one thing.
Oh,
That's wow.
What? That loses so much time. Jeez, Kuroshi. That's why you had such a good fight. Alright. This is the Radiance. This is the final boss of the game. It is the hardest boss of the game, many would consider, given that it is the final boss. The Hollow Knight, many think, is not that hard of a boss, and that's because every time you want to fight the Radiance, you gotta fight the Hollow Knight first. Now with DLC, there are a few harder bosses, but in the base game, this is the hardest. There are several phases. Shriek is really well designed for Radiance, as you can see. Radiance does double damage, has all kinds of attacks, and right now we're getting spoiled because we have a floor, but that will not last long.
We're taking slightly safer strats because it's a marathon, but it's fine. We're not as I tried to get the meme, but we didn't get it.
Nice. That's a really scary attack because you barely have time to react to those swords. Pretty much every other attack you have a little bit more reaction time. So now we're navigating similar attacks, but this time, like I said, we don't really have a floor, so we're on these platforms. Radiance likes to move around even further because she now has the entire length of the screen. Very nice. We should be on climb any second.
No, not quite.
Yeah, there we go. So this is the last phase of the fight. We got to climb up these platforms. As you can see, Kuroshi's very good at it. We're doing all wall jumps, which is significantly faster. We get the underplat, and that's GG.
GG.
It is not time though.
Yeah, we're coming up on time just a bit. Yeah, so that's the Radiance fight with Shriek, and it's actually really fun.
Awesome run, Kuroshi. That's
Kuroshi, great job.
Deathless run. It is so easy to die in this run. It is one of the hardest runs to get through Deathless. Kuroshi's a super talented runner. Huge GGs on this. Huge GGs on getting the world record yesterday.
Thanks. Okay, and we're about time. Okay, alright, it's not too bad. Yeah, so that's like the whole run in a nutshell. That was Hollow Knight True Ending. Unlike 1-2-1, we have to Team Cherry forces you to watch the credits and the end scene. You can actually skip these credits and the end scene in an older patch, but for some reason, again, this actually causes us some issues in speedrun, but it doesn't really matter now. But like, Team Cherry basically forces you to watch these cutscenes for some reason. Overestimate? I'm so sorry. We went a bit overestimate, just a tad bit. You know, it's fine. It is fine. Since like what do you call it, sketch went below estimate, you know, we're just trying to follow the schedule, you know, guys. We're just trying to follow the schedule. But yeah. So that was Hollow Knight current patch True Ending. No major glitches again. I hope you all enjoyed the run. Definitely. The Hollow Knight community is, you know, a constantly growing community, and we have a pretty, I think, sizable community to say the least, where you can find speedruns of all different shapes, sizes. As we mentioned, there are the main board categories, like for example this category that I'm running, True Ending current patch no major glitches. There's also the more popular one, any percent, and there's also, again, I think Picardy mentioned throughout the run just now, all skills. So there are a bunch of cool, those are main board categories. We also have what we call category extensions, or as the community likes to call them, meme categories, where we have all these sorts of like interesting things, because Hollow Knight as a Metroidvania lends itself greatly to sort of like, you know, having different goals and like, you know, ideas. One of the more popular meme categories would be all charm notches, where you basically try and find all the charm notches and certain things. There's also stuff like Path of Pain percent, which if anyone's familiar with, basically you try to start from a new save file and you try to get to Path of Pain, one of the more iconic and difficult platforming sections in all of Hollow Knight. There's also, and those are just on the board meme categories. There's also a very super secret, top secret, even like only people in the know, you gotta be part of the cool kids club to kind of like, no, not really, you can find it very easily, but very lovely what do you call that, meme category extension spreadsheet that is maintained by a wonderful member of our community. I think she's in the chat right now. But yeah, where we have even weirder meme categories like I guess midwife percent or eat me percent, and like all sorts of like, you know, insane fun stuff that you can find. Either way, the Hollow Knight community is I think a very huge community, as well as, you know, enough plug, like, you know, there's always something out there for everyone else, everyone in the like everyone, you know. So feel free to, you know, if you like to, you can, you know, check out the Hollow Knight section, where at any given time there would be someone doing runs, and you can probably ask them about for like, you know, a link to the Discord, or you can just check it on speedrun.com/Hollow Knight, where you can find the Discord right at the top left hand corner, top right hand corner, so sorry. And also again a plug, a big shout out and big thank you to Jew Horse who helped organize this whole thing as well. You know, do check out the next run, which I believe is, let me check what the next run is. Next one is Octopath by Quadriceps. Do, you know, check out the Singapore speedrunning community. Is like a relatively small community, but we have, you know, a bunch of cool runners here and there. You know, Jew Horse, as I mentioned, Jordan as well, myself. I don't think I'm cool, but you get what I mean. And we have, like, you know, we have a bunch of cool runs upcoming. Like I mentioned earlier, the next run is Octopath Traveler, and then there's gonna be some Resident Evil, Minecraft as well if you like Minecraft, and as well as Stardew Valley, although that's a bit later on in the about more than like 12 hours from now. But yeah, Stardew Valley speedruns. So if you like Stardew Valley, that might be something interesting that you want to check. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the run. You know, I try my best to try and get a good timing. I am 2 minutes off my personal best and way above estimate. I'm so sorry, Gio. But yeah, again, I hope you guys enjoyed the the speedrun. And yeah, let's head on over to like next part of the run, and I hope you all have a good day, and you know, stay tuned for even more cool runs.